Mrs. Builder here. Today we are talking about attending to minor characters. So before we kind of get started in that, what I want you to do, think about if you were a student giving a tour to someone. Okay, welcome wagon, there's a new student to the school. You have to give them a tour. What would it look like? Where would you take them? What would you tell them? What are the important things that they need to know? And so on and so on. So think about that. And then what I would want you to do, think about if you were a bird and the bird has a nest right outside our school. And you have a new bird that comes to your nest, or you have a baby bird that you need to show them around. What would you show them? What's important? What's around you? What do they need to know? Seems to be that might be a little bit harder than if you were a student taking around a new student or building and telling them the important things. So think about that. Imagine as if though the student that you're showing around is the main character. Okay, it's kind of easy to analyze and understand and to develop the ideas that we have about our main character. The bird perspective that I gave you and had you think about, pretend that's the minor character. Okay, minor characters are sometimes a little harder to understand, sometimes a little harder to see what the importance is and to develop those thoughts a little bit. So today we're going to really focus on attending to those minor characters. Today I want to teach you that minor characters are in a story for a reason. They, like the main characters, help to carry the big message or the big idea as the main message of the story, the moral. One way to improve your interpretation of a story is to reread, trying to understand the point of view, the perspective of a minor character. Then to revise your interpretation to include what you learn based off what you've learned from the minor character in conjunction with your major character. So we're going to be looking at that today. So attending to that minor character up here, we want to step into the shoes of a minor character to really understand or to better understand the story. We already read and we already understand the major character where we want to attend to the minor character's thoughts to kind of coincide that with the major character. So figuring out perspective, there's three things we can think about. Whose eyes are seeing this story? So we talk a little bit about perspective sometimes. So when we're talking about perspective, we can think, whose eyes are seeing this story? There's little eyes. What thoughts am I hearing? Okay, and whose voice is telling this story? So thinking about perspective when you attend to those minor characters is really important to understand the story in a way that's a little different than understanding the major characters. So to do this, give the perspective, give or state text evidence that goes along with that perspective, and connect why is the story important to the whole story, or why is the minor character important to understand and coincide with the major characters. Okay, well, how do I do this? Well, here's some text sentence starters that can help you get started. The perspective is, okay, state our perspective. The perspective is. Give that text evidence. That was our next step. Give or state that text evidence. I know this because in the story it says. And then the last thing is, why is this important? Connect this to the whole story. This is important because. Okay, so let's look at that together. So one of the stories that we've all read is Tiger Rising. I know I wasn't there with you when we did it, but we read it, so we all can understand and appreciate that story. If you do recall, Rob and Sistine are our main characters in that story. So we want to attend to some minor characters and think about how those minor characters played a role in the story. So I want to think about the minor character of Rob's father. Okay, he's in the story from the very beginning. So if we kind of develop and understand him, maybe we can understand Rob or understand more of the story a little bit more. So I'm going to just show you what I could write. So in the story, Tiger Rising. So even though I didn't tell you to state the story, obviously it's important to do that too. A minor character is Rob's father. And again, even though I didn't tell you to state the actual character, stating the perspective can sometimes coincide with stating the character. He keeps Rob emotionally withdrawn in the story. We talk about that Rob has lack of emotion throughout the story. So I'm using Rob's father, this minor character, to support that notion. So Rob is emotionally withdrawn because of his father is essentially what I'm saying. In the story it says, and you probably remember this from the very beginning of the book, there ain't no point in crying. His father says, after, this is during the funeral, his father says, crying ain't gonna bring her back. So he says this about his mom at her funeral, to bring her. Okay, so there's my text evidence. So now I want to say why this is important. And this is important because it shows Rob's inability to trust and discuss his feelings. This is important to the story because it develops Rob's suitcase of emotions. So because this happens in the beginning of the story, and we learn this, that this is what his father says to him, we understand as we continue throughout the story why Rob really has a hard time with emotion. So this really supports that notion of him having lack of any kind of emotion and just isn't able to cry. This kind of kicks it off right in the beginning of the story. So I've stated my main character or my perspective, right? There's my perspective. My perspective is from Rob's father and why this is important to the story. I give my text evidence in the story. It says, and then I name this whole part here. And then I tell why it's important. This is important because, and I even give two things that support one of our themes throughout the story is that suitcase of emotion. So really understanding how minor characters can play a role in the story and that they're not just there for no reason. Rob's dad doesn't say these things and act the way he does for no reason. Understanding Rob's dad really helps us to understand Rob and why Rob is the way that he is. So readers, just a reminder, today and every day, when you're reading through stories, make sure you're paying attention to minor characters and understanding that they're in a story for a reason. They help to carry the big message or the big ideas in the story. Understanding their interpretation can help us improve upon or understand the perspective that they bring to the rest of the story.